So when we're learning the kettlebell swing, the first thing I want you to understand is the movement. What is the movement look like for the very beginner kettlebell swing? Because there's lots of advanced variations, but that very beginner one, the easiest one to learn so that you can get out there and start using this technique, is pretty straightforward. It's literally just a bend and a snap, right? You'll see me call it a hinge a lot of times, but that's really just means a bend at the hips. Typically when people say hinge, that's what they mean. And that can be a straight-legged hinge. It could be a dynamic hinge where the knees bend as well. Who cares? For our conversation right now, that doesn't matter. What does matter is understanding how I'm pushing my hips back and keeping my hands very tight to my groin as I do so, okay? Now the reason for this, the reason I want my hands so tight to my groin is to limit the amount of exposure to my lower back so that I don't injure myself as I'm learning. When you get better at this, you might hinge a little earlier or something. That because you're stronger, you're more able to deal with that, you can do things a little bit differently. You can have the bell a little farther away and do some stuff. You can make these mistakes in a strategic way to get a desired result. But for now, when you're first learning it, we want to minimize all the things that you have to think about so that you can actually get a basic movement down and then progress it over time. So we're starting with the hinge style, pretty commonly the hard style form of kettlebell swing. All right, so the movement is arms are up in front of us. Now, as you've seen many of my videos, I talk about this. I don't care about your elbows. It can be locked and straight. They can be bent. I don't care. Okay, that part's not important to what we're learning right now. But we have our arms out in front of us. I'm bringing my arms down and touching my legs before my hips move. Now I should clarify, when I'm standing and my arms are out in front, I'm not slouched, my knees aren't bent. I'm in this not rigid position, but a very strong position. Got a little tension here in my belly, a slight little tension in my glutes, quads, all these things, just a little to make sure I'm in that like kind of plank position as if I was on the ground holding myself up, kind of like that, right? So I'm in this type, like standing plank type position. My hands come down, they touch my legs, okay? The cue that I use for that is slap, right? I want to audibly hear that slap before your hips move. So my arms come down, they slap into my legs. As soon as I feel that, well, when you're first learning it, you're doing it very slow. So I slap, then I move. My back stays connected. I don't like the term straight. I'm not trying to get everything perfectly straight. I'm letting that natural curvature of my spine happen and just kind of locking it all in place using my core muscles, which is basically your abdominal muscles and your back together. All right, so I've got these things connected. So I slap, my back stays the exact same way it was. Whatever it is, don't let that move. And then I'm just bending at my hips. Again, I don't really care if your knees bend or not. That's not relevant for this drill. I'm just working on keeping my hands in tight to my groin as I push my hips back. Now, as you can see this, my hands, hopefully you can see this, my hands are starting to stick out the back, starting to like come out my butt. That's exactly what we're looking for. So the bell now would be in my hands, is sticking out the back, okay? In this position, as I'm making this bend, I always use the cue push to really emphasize how much my hips want to move. Because we have a tendency to not move our hips much. You'll slap and then you'll see people bending forward like this, which is not what I want. I want your hips to slide backwards here. And that's why I use that cue of push to really, so my arms are pushing my butt back to get out the back between my legs. Once we're in this position, I'm very offset. So my head's on one side and the bell's on the other, and my feet are somewhere around the center between them. Okay? Now I'm going to extend my legs and my hips specifically. My hips specifically. I'm going to squeeze those glutes, squeeze those hamstrings, pop myself straight back up into that standing plank position. Okay? Once I do that, this snap of my hips right here is what makes my arms float up. Again, straight arm, bent arm, who cares? We're just snapping here to get my hands floating up in the air, getting the bell moving. Okay? So that's your very first drill that you're going to go through. It's slap, push, pop. Slap, push. your workouts, when you're learning the kettlebell swing, this is going to be part of your warm-up exercise. Okay, you're going to be doing this exercise a whole bunch, pretty much every time you're going to swing. This is going to be a warm-up for you. Okay, you've gone through your, so if you're training with me, I use the PPSC model where you've got a whole breathing routine followed by some self-myofascial release, which is foam rolling, et cetera, and stretching routines and all this other stuff, mobility work, before you go into your real first exercise. Well, this would be towards the end of that. Towards the end of that, we're doing this drill. And you're going to do it over and over and over, hundreds and hundreds of reps to tell your body, this is how I want you to move. Eventually, you probably won't need it anymore. You'll have such a good swing 2 years from now that it won't matter. You won't need this drill anymore. But every now and then, it's good to go back. When I filmed the first video of me doing this, I had completely forgotten about this drill. I hadn't done it in probably 10 years. And so when I went to do it, I had to really think it through, like, okay, what is it that I do? And it's good to go back through those fundamentals regularly. So now that I've kind of like seen this drill, I've put it back into my routine. I am still doing this pretty much every hinge day. I'm doing this drill, telling my body, this is what I want from you. This is the movement I'm looking for. Reinforcing that neural pathway, if you will. Anyway, that's the very first thing I want you to learn in your kettlebell swing journey.